That's really, really good. Abby, you at some point mentioned also, like this whole idea of kind of pulling the I'm not from here card. So flesh that out a little bit. Explain what you mean by that and some ways that we can maybe avoid doing that all the time, even though it feels like it, because you feel like an idiot so often. And you want to explain yourself why you don't understand how to buy stamps or why you don't understand how to, whatever, put in a sprinkler. So talk to me about that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I think it's something I am used to pulling overseas because especially like, and it was something like evangelizing where it's like, hey, I'm from America and this is why I'm here, is to tell you about Jesus. Like, it's pretty easy lead in to conversations. And I think, like, personally, I want so badly for people to, like, just think like, oh yeah, she's got it together. When I'm like figuring out how to pump gas and I clearly don't know what I'm doing, my pride is a little injured. And so I want to, like, it feels like a grace card, but then when you pull it too often, it becomes like a barrier to conversations, because people, if you just keep saying like, oh, I'm from Thailand, like, oh, I'm from Thailand, oh, I'm from China, oh, like, sorry, I don't understand, then people are just gonna be like, okay, so you're just stuck in the past of where you're from, and aren't able to like really just be in this new place. And like, I have friends from California and Colorado and Iowa and all these other places that, like, they're not just saying like, oh, I'm from like Colorado, I don't know how it works in Tennessee. Like, I mean, granted, it's a little more similar, but like, I think I've had some people say, like, when I say I'm from Thailand, like, oh, we'll just make the rest of us feel bad. I'm like, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. That's just literally where I grew up. Like, that was just home. Or the complicated sense of home. And I think people often perceive it as arrogant when we're just talking about our overseas experiences, because so many people don't have the opportunity to travel like we did, and to see new places. And like, travel in the States is seen as, actually all over the world, is seen as a privilege. And it's something that, like, we just grew up doing. Like, I was on a plane at 2 weeks old because I was born in a different city that I lived in. And so that's just something I've always done. But to other people, travel is like something exotic. And so just continuing to say like, oh yeah, when I went to this country and this country, they're like, now you're just being arrogant and I can't relate to that. But it can be like, oh yeah, I did see that cool thing. Or like, it takes a different kind of packaging to like relate to people, but not put up the barriers of continuing to isolate yourself. Because if you do continue to isolate yourself and pull the card of, I'm not from here, people are going to see you as, okay, you're not from here, we get it, we'll stop trying. And I think some people, like, I have friends that occasionally I will say like, yeah, I'm going to pull the Thailand card on that one because I have literally no idea what you're talking about. And they'll be like, okay, like, they'll graciously explain like what I missed out on or like what I have no idea about. But I think like those people know me past, oh, she's a girl from Thailand. They know me as like me. And so they already have grace for me. So I don't have to pull that to get grace, just pull it to get an explanation. So.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of what Abby said, like, how you package things is so important. So like, for example, if you are talking about something you did in middle school, instead of saying, oh, well, back in Thailand, I did blah, 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 you could be like, well, in 7th grade, I did. So you kind of frame it in the same way they could frame it, and it immediately gives you common ground, even if that story is very different, And also, well, it just comes back to humility and being willing to admit that you don't know what's going on, but don't admit it to the point that it's like a stamp of pride. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you can pull the card so many times that you just kind of keep reminding people that you don't know what's going on, and it makes them feel like they're doing something wrong. And I have people, kind of like what Abby said, they're my stupid China question people, where I just go to them, I'm like, okay, I have a stupid China question or a stupid America question, and I know that they won't judge me, but they're my friends outside of just those stupid questions. But I know I can go to them and say, okay, what the heck is Venmo? And they're not like, you don't know what Venmo is? And so finding those safe people where your relationship is more than just those questions, I think is a huge lifesaver. And I wish a year ago someone had told me to like find those people, because it would have saved me a lot of awkward conversations. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And I think too, the other layer of constantly kind of using the overseas card is I think it also kind of short circuits our ability to be okay and be comfortable with being in America, because it constantly keeps us where we're kind of pushing America to the peripheral a little bit. And I think sometimes we can do that because maybe we don't want to be here, you know? And so if we constantly kind of use the card, we don't have to allow ourselves to acclimate as fully. I think we can, I don't know, I think that we can cope, use it as a coping mechanism is maybe another deeper layer of that. Okay, so last question is, what are some things that you guys either did or do you feel like would be helpful as you think of, 13-year-old and up, as they think about getting ready to get to America, or they're here and they just don't understand American culture? What are some things they can do, shows they could watch, or whatever?
I just want to preface and say I still don't understand American culture. A year really hasn't given me that much, of a head start on anyone else, but hopefully people can use my awkward experiences to learn something. I think the biggest thing is watching Netflix. I know it's really hard homework, like that's tough, but like even shows that you think this is stupid or this isn't a reflection on America, like even if the whole show isn't a reflection on America, there is still nuggets of like, okay, that's why they will say this, or that's what that reference is. And so, and even in class, professors will reference TV shows or that character or this character. And so if you've never seen shows like The Office or Friends or New Girl or things like that that are just very common vernacular, I would highly recommend watching them, because it'll just really help you, even if you don't watch the whole show, have, a few little statements that you can insert, like, oh yeah, I remember when, and then you can change the subject so they don't know that you haven't watched the whole show. But I think another thing that would help is just learn about America in general, learn the president's names, learn about politics, kind of educate yourself, learn slang, like anything that you would do before you went to another country like Uruguay, you would want to do in coming to America. And so even if you speak English already, there's things that you won't know how to say, and you have to educate yourself like anyone else would. And I think the last thing is do activities that will allow you to have common ground with people, like the fact that I played sports in high school or that I was in drama for a year. All these things I immediately can relate to someone that was also in drama or sports. And so kind of right now, if you're in high school, allow yourself to do activities instead of just isolating yourself, because that will help you make friends a lot faster and also help you get involved with activities more once you get to college. But that's just a few things off the top of my head, but
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. One thing I have learned is that American culture, just like probably any other culture you've been in, revolves around food. And like, with my friends in Thailand, we would go out and get noodles, or we go out and get like sticky rice and chicken and like, take it somewhere. And like, people go out and get cookout. And if you don't know what cookout is, you'll find out. Probably if you're in the South, or like In-N-Out, I guess, if you're on the West Coast, or like people go out and get food a lot. And that's something, like, I mean, if you're younger, you might not do that, like just going out with people. Like if you're in college, you're probably going to go out and get food. And that's something that, I don't know, it just kind of comforted me to know, like, oh, that's common. Okay, sweet. Like, we still do things with food. And even though the food changes, it's not as spicy. It's probably more bland. At least that was what I found. It's just still similar. And, like, people in the States do stuff together a lot. And they're not as prone to have, like, those heart conversations. Is something I found. And it's frustrating when you're just like, but you don't know me. Like, you just know what jokes I'll laugh at, or like what I can or can't do. And like, that'll be frustrating. But if you stick around them long enough, like those conversations will come up. And if you're persistent and if you're also gracious, I think as TCKs, we're probably a lot more used to conferences and camps and, you know, friendships that we know are going to end quickly or people will move on. And so we just like invest and we're like, well, here's everything about me you ever wanted to know. So like, are we friends? Sweet. And one graph I saw, I think Selah probably remembers this from our stateside conference, was like, as TCKs, when we like get to know people, we'll like go super deep and then we'll kind of like get a little deeper. But then when people haven't gone a lot of places, they'll just like get deeper gradually and it takes more time. But the beauty of like having a larger community is you get to choose those people that you're, if you have a larger community, that's what I found in college. It's really nice. You get to choose people you hang out with. You're not just stuck with people. And if you invest time, like those friendships will grow deeper, just at a different rate than you're probably used to. So that's something that really helped me with like friends. Because it is frustrating at first because you're like, no one really knows me. But I think as you adapt, like it's healthy to, you know, largely move on and try to figure out how to embrace new culture, but it's also healthy to maintain like significant ties to home and like at least, or home, you know, that's complicated. Like some friends that get it, like me and Selah call a lot, we're just like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand this. And that's what's been super helpful in our first year of like, why do people do this? And I don't understand. And it's just like comforting to know like, okay, we're not in the same place, but we have similar struggles.
Yeah.
And also like having things like food from home. If you know that you're planning to move back home, pack your favorite snacks, ration them out, eat them when you're sad. Like that's okay. That's normal. I have a whole thing of spicy noodles and seaweed in our kitchen that I've like eat one a month. Like it's totally fine to do that. And then you get to share them with friends too and show them like some of your favorite snacks. So those are some things I would say, like, I guess that's more like home, but just as you adjust and adapt, like that really helped me.
And I think like, I remember this last year, the time that I felt most loved through the whole year was during Chinese New Year. And it was a hard week for a lot of reasons, but then it was also hard because it was Chinese New Year and it was the first time in my memory I'd ever not been in China for Chinese New Year. And I was like kind of bummed about it and I mentioned it to one of my friends and then they surprised me by taking me out to eat Chinese food. And then they took me to the Asian market and they were like, pick any food you want, we'll pay for it and we'll try it even if it's like pig intestines. And so we went out and we had it and they were just so like interested in my life and I felt so loved that they were willing to try what they thought were like weird foods, which squid isn't weird, squid's delicious, but they thought it was weird. And so I felt so loved in that moment because they knew that it was hard for me to not be there, but they were allowing me to keep that tie to home a little bit while kind of integrating my new life and kind of clashing those two. And I think after that, I noticed a big turning point in myself of where I saw home as. And I feel like I could say that home was definitely here as well as in China because I was bringing both parts together really well. And then one more thing I was going to add to what Abby said about going out to eat food. If you're a girl, at least, I can't speak for guys, but girls go out to drink coffee together a lot. They go to coffee shops. They have, at least in college, coffee is like social currency. And so if you don't like coffee, find some really good tea you like or something like that. And going and have coffee with people is when you have those more deep conversations.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't prepared for how often people go out and drink coffee. I told my mom recently, I said, I know how much American dollars are worth, but how much it would cost to buy me a latte.
Same. Because everything.
If that movie is $10, that's like 2.5 lattes worth. Okay, I can spare that, you know. So it's really important, and being comfortable, not going super deep, super fast, and kind of learning to meet people in the middle. Like go down super far, and they kind of go gradually. We'll meet them in that y-axis, you know.
Yeah.
And don't push your way on them, so they won't push their way on you, and then you'll end up being a lot happier. So.
Yeah. And I think one thing Selah and I talked about when, like, a while ago, with, like, food and things, and just overall, this is kind of a college excerpt, and whatever, a college thing, is, like, cleanliness. So, like, if you're going to college, going to, like, public high school, I don't know how clean public high schools are. I never went to one, but, like, things might not be clean and people are like, oh, it's so gross. And you're like, this bathroom is awesome. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't smell that bad. Like,
It has toilet paper.
yeah, like, has toilet paper and soap. I don't know what we're complaining about. And things like that. Like, things with food, like, my college cafeteria, I think is awesome. And my other, like, MK friend from Kenya thinks is awesome. But two of our friends think is disgusting. And we're like, get over yourself. It's food. There's clean vegetables that won't give you parasites, and the meat is pretty much cooked all the way most of the time. Like, you're gonna be fine. And so things like that, like, I think we have a level of resilience just from adapting to so many places that, like, if you see it as like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out and I'm gonna adapt and I'm gonna be okay. Like, things like that, you're gonna have the upper hand, actually, of like, hey, I know how to adapt to this. I know how to, if I'm going to college, I know how to make this home. Like, I bring a few things from where I lived. I bring a few, like, pictures and all of those things. And, like, I can bring little pieces along with me that, like, will help make it home. And, like, decorate your room with, I decorate them with Starbucks mugs that I've collected from different places. I know it's, like, super the cliche in our community, but hey, it's a great way to be like, oh, I went there and there and there. And, like, I can think about it and not shove in everyone's face that I went those places, but I can be like, oh, I love that mug from Korea. You know, things like that. And just, like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but just we have a level of, like, knowing how to make it home and knowing how to adapt that I think we forget about in the stress of, like, I have to adapt. But, like, you can do it. And we can all do it. And it's not, like Selah said at the beginning, it's not as scary as we make it out to be a lot of times. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I feel like you guys have given people a really good perspective on how to view America, how to approach America in a healthy way. I think it's easy to, I mean, America is kind of a dumpster fire at the moment. And so it's easy to just complain about the States. But that's not really helpful to any of us. And it's definitely not allowing the Lord to say, this is where I have you for now, and I need you to be content. We're not allowing ourselves to receive that as good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate what you guys have shared today. And I know that it will be super helpful to other TCKs that are maybe nervous about being in America. They don't want to go, or they just are intimidated, or all of these things. And I think you guys have given some real good kind of footholds for them to hold on to. So thanks so much for talking with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if there's anyone that wants to reach out to Abby or I with any questions, or if you're going to either of our schools, just let us know, because we would love to help and take you out to eat good food or something like that.
Absolutely.
I know she's like ranked the Chinese food places and markets in College Station.
I have a list.
Yeah. And my email, I didn't mean for it to be up on the screen, but it is. So if you want to email me, even if you're not going to my school, if you have any questions, just right there.
I'll tag you guys on when I post it, and so people will, if people have questions too, they can put it on there as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.